Hello and welcome to Why I Love Warhammer. This is our painting and live chat stream for the week. And on this episode, I'm going to be focusing on the Immolator from the Sisters of Battle range, the Adeptus Sororitas. This has been an absolute dream model to paint up. And I now know that the stream is... So I have a 26-ish second lag behind you guys. I have an array of colours here that I'm planning on using for this beast. And I've actually got two Immolators, but one I'm using for a kit bash, which does mean I've got a backup stained glass window just in case things mess up a bit. So the focus and plan for today's stream is to paint the stained glass window. Also, we've got a new light in this home office I've got going on here where we're doing these streams. So hopefully it's going to be a bit better lit now than it's been in previous streams. And yeah, so hopefully by the end of this stream, we'll at least have a lovely stained glass window painted up. Now, because it's this clear plastic rather than it being any kind of rather than it being just solid, this hasn't been given the base coat that I would normally give a model. The downside of that means it isn't primed just at all. So what I'm going to be doing is I've actually got a brand new pot of Black Legion contrast paint. And what I'm going to be doing is getting it to a consistency where I can dry brush it over all of the black. Because of the style of paint that I'm using, not the brand of paint per se, but like the methodology that I'm using to go about painting this, I actually don't want the liquid, as much of the liquid in this Black Legion as one would normally want. What I've done is I've just drained the majority of it onto a tissue, and I'm basically going to do... So it's a technique I always recommend for kind of raised detail, which is to get a big brush, one that's quite wide, and just very gently go across. What that does is it just gets the raised portion and doesn't touch what's underneath. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be 100% perfect, but by doing it first, we can then use the other colours that we're going to be using on this stained glass window to kind of cover up our mistakes. So there's a couple of reasons to use black for the middle of the stained glass. There's the boring reason, and there's the boring reason, the practical reason, and the more interesting reason. So the boring reason is that's what the box art does, right? That's boring, right? You don't just want to paint how the box art says to. Like, I've got specific feelings about that for painting up like a specific legion. Like, if you, let's say for Sisters of Battle, right, they've got different orders, and if you're a huge fan of the Sisters of Battle, right, you're a huge fan of them, and you are like especially fond of the Order of the Bloody Rose, or you really like... so this is the Immolator from the... thank you for joining us, Rich. Richie448. This is the Immolator from the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle range. it is, and specifically focusing this week on the stained glass window aspect of it. It's the troop transport for the faction. They've actually got 2 troop transports, both of which are really cool. In fact, I personally prefer their troop transports to their actual tanks. And if it were in the rules, right? If the rules said that you can take an empty transport as a unit, and it doesn't have to be filled with anything, I would happily have an army of just Sisters of Battle troop transports. I'd also have to have an army of just Space Marine Rhinos. So yeah, the black in the middle of the stained glass window, right? That has a couple of purposes. One, the boring reason. It's the box art. The slightly less boring reason is that the black stands out more against the more colourful backdrop. And then the colour scheme. I'll explain that before I say the most interesting reason for doing black here. To be honest, I went into this not entirely knowing the colour scheme. So emulating the box art is going to be black for the lining. It's going to be Gehenna's gold, which is this beautiful shade of gold that I was using on my last stream for Necrons. And then a silver, which I'm hoping will be Lead Belcher, but might end up being Runefang for the bits in between. That colour scheme is more to emulate the box art than it is for a quote-unquote good reason. Like I say, the most interesting reason, I think, for using the Gehennas, for using black for these middle bits, right, is it's actually realistic. Now, on this channel, it's a bit of a borrowed observation, actually, but I really like it. There's a difference between what is realistic and what is believable, right? So Chaos Knights are huge and stompy, and their weaponry, their arsenal, that looks believable. But rationally, in any real-life situation, you kind of know that it's a bit ludicrous and that it would never actually work that way. They just topple over, they're top-heavy. Whereas, say, the camouflage uniform of the Cadians is something that real-world armies have, and even though it doesn't work as camouflage because that's not where they are fighting, that is realistic because a real-world army would dress like that. It's realistic to use black for these middly bits because that's what actual churches use. It's lead-based, right? They use lead, and old lead goes a bit darker. What's especially interesting is part of why it's good to use lead is because it's really pliable, right? And stained glass windows, you've got to change the lead every few years because glass is liquid. It's a very slow liquid, but it flows. And over many, many years, the glass in stained glass windows will actually start flowing down. So if you go to a really old cathedral, you'll actually be able to see, or the people who work there will be able to tell you, that the glass in the stained glass windows is substantially thinner at the top because it has flowed downwards. And so, yeah, having the black lead like that. And so every few years, what they need to do is replace the lead that's between the stained glass. And in doing that, they are able to keep the lovely colouring, and they keep the stained glass windows. They remain intact. Those aren't messed with at all. but those same windows, they're not the same as they were when they were first installed. So we have here the completed black bit. So the next one I'm going to be doing is the silver. I'm doing the kind of more boring colors first. And that's because I want to be able to really focus on the color that is going to be in, that this is going to have. And with the full color, that will really kind of tie everything together. I'll tell you what, this is making me wish that Games Workshop had like a clear paint primer, because even though I kind of knew the risks going in, I am basically painting an unprimed model, which means that the model risks kind of being streaky, the paint might not cling as well to the plastic. I mean, to make my coats a lot thicker than I'd normally do. And it's, yeah. So yeah, just seen the message there, Richie, for, not hearing about it. Yeah, that's the thing. 40K's got so many brilliant factions, and it's easy for especially other Imperial factions to be kind of forgotten about by the wayside. And sorry, never heard of that. I think if you're referring to the clear primer, it's that's not something that exists. It's something I wish existed. Because, yeah, I don't like painting the unprimed model, but that is the requirement for how I've chosen to go about this. And again, by going with lead belcher, it's a darker silver than something like Runefang steel. And so that will, again, provides that greater contrast between the kind of the structural components of the model and the more decorative aspects, right? But yeah, the stained glass window thing really made this model an absolute dream model to try and obtain and paint up. Because, like, who doesn't want to try painting a stained glass window for themselves? And kind of as a mini wargamer, I'd really want to paint the mini wargame version of that. Okay. Today's actually going to hopefully be a pretty Warhammer focused evening for me, because at some point in the evening I'm due to play Darktide with some friends. And Darktide's an amazing game, which... So my PC's weird. It is a gaming PC. I got it to be a gaming PC. But I don't really play that many new games, and I've never been in a position before where I've needed to like upgrade a component of my PC. and Dark Tide very much pushes my PC to its limit. I have all of the graphical settings turned all the way down, and it runs in a window that it's not full screen. It is and even then it doesn't run that well. I think I set the frame rate to 30 FPS. Even then, its load times are abysmal, and I'm slow to get into games. I'm pretty laggy, but it's such good fun. And if I play with kind of people I know in a closed environment, it's a lot more playable. But if I start playing with people I don't know, then it chugs. Just absolutely chugs. But it's a really fun game. Part of why I felt I could justify getting this model to myself, right, weirdly enough, came from a slightly angry YouTube comment that replied to me a couple of years ago now. It was a video by there's the Warhammer podcast talking about everyone's troop transport, and I was talking, and I said like I love stuff like the Votan Sagatower, but I just didn't feel like I liked it enough to invest in entire leagues of Votan army. Someone said you do realize you can just buy models you like. You don't have to get whole armies. And even though I always rationally knew that, I never really internalized it. And I feel like once I had internalized it, I felt like a lot of stuff was suddenly open to me. So I've got the endless spells for the Daughters of Cain in Age of Sigmar. And up until the LVO reveals, I never intended on getting a Daughters of Cain army. Then they introduced that gorgeous new general model for that Dawnbringers stuff that I just think was beautiful. But yeah, so like I don't feel bad getting models from armies I don't necessarily intend on expanding out. It's the danger of kind of, especially these days, where since I started the channel and I'm looking at every army from just relentless positivities, it does make it easy to want to start getting every single army, get every model that Games Workshop sell. But I just don't have the time. Like, if I were immortal and Bezos wealthy, maybe I could get like half the stuff that Games Workshop sell. But that would be devoting my entire life to this hobby rather than it being a hobby. Even if this were my full-time job, right? People don't just work their full-time jobs. They, if you're a plumber, you don't plumb 24/7. If you've got a family, you get that. You have family time. You plan for the future. You do other stuff. So, yeah, I don't think I could ever really be in a position to get every single Warhammer model that GW sell. I just don't think I could have the time. What's also funny is if you start looking at all the models in a range and thinking, oh my god, this is awesome, and looking at just the awesomeness, then what I find is I tend not to necessarily want to get the army there and then. Even when I've uploaded a video for it, I don't necessarily want to invest in that army there and then. But re-watching the video, like the next day, that's when I start wanting it. Like the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, I did that video, and it was later that day. I was in the room when a family member was watching the video, and suddenly, just like a crash, I thought, oh god, I really want to play Ossiarch Bone Reapers. And I know it's going to happen when my Beasts of Chaos video goes up tomorrow. Because, yeah, they are a really cool army. And they've got, like, it's the beasts in that army that make it, I think. It's the cockatrice, it's the endless spells, it's that terrain that really ties that army together in a really cool way. So, yeah, I can fully see Beasts of Chaos being the next army. I think, oh man, I really want to play them. Really want to play those guys. But we'll see. I was also going to do an Uruk War Clans video, because they are weirdly underrated, but I've actually broken it up into two. So I've got part one prepped, ready to record. Part one is just focusing on the Cruel Boys and the Gore Grunters. And then the next time I come round to Destruction again, will be when I kind of do part two of the Uruk War Clans, and yeah, that's when I'll talk about the other Uruks. Actually, I mentioned something earlier which I think is worth coming back to, which was that if they ever change the rules to let you run troop transports without any troops inside them, I'd probably get an entire army of like Sisters troop transports, right? The reason that I don't really talk about rules on this channel at all is because Cruel the Cruel Boys are so cool. Like, I love their various beasts and stuff. Like, some of their general models are phenomenal. And of course, their Grand Alliance Destruction, which means they get Kragnos. But yeah, so but then I also know in my heart that if I were to ever get myself an Uruk War Clans army, it would 100% be the Gore Grunters, the orcs riding boars. I love pigs, generally speaking. Slapping some guns on there and calling a tank. Kit bash a few. What were you saying I should kit bash? Again, I've got like a 30-ish second delay. Kit bash the troop transports. I'd love to, but I also find that what I'd really like to do is just run them as they are. So I keep talking about having like a second Immolator, and it's true. And I'm actually doing a kit bash for it. and my plan is to turn it into a stage. Because they did the Goth Rocker video. They're not video. Well, they did the video too, but it was a Christmas model they did a couple of years back. I painted up my Goth Rocker. Really loved the Goth Rocker. Then I got the Noise Marine model they did a few years prior. He's playing the electric guitar. And then I got just the sidecar Space Marine from one of the Space Marine biker units. I think it was the ATV. And then set them up on a drum kit. And that drum kit has like a Tyranid symbol and a Tau symbol. So I had this idea of like this band that was all about like a galactic unity. And with that tank, and with that band play, and if I can get that band playing on this converted Sisters of Battle tank, that would be, just this absolute stage of, like I say, galactic unity, which is fun to me. And I've got a box of LED lights, which I can attach like a watch battery to, and have like a full light up stage going on. If I could get the wiring for it and some solder and a soldering iron, I'd make a full-on battery-operated circuit to just really go ham and have lights and stuff on this huge stage. So if anyone's just joining the stream, what I am painting up is the Sisters of Battle Immolator, focusing on the stained glass window. It's been an absolute dream model of mine for a long time, and doing it a little bit backwards because of where my comfort zones are, by painting the outside and then painting in the cool glass bits. So there we are with the gold and the silver and the black painted up. And now we have something a bit more interesting. So this gold and silver and black was about as far as I was wanting to actually emulate the box art. Here is the box art. And they've got a few colours in. And the only thing I'm going to be trying to keep from the box art into my painted model is keeping it broadly symmetrical. So I've got a Tupperware lid, and I use these as palettes. And I'm going to start with, let's start with a lovely Luxian purple. And yes, that's the point. I've just received a message. This you can't interact with the live stream on phones. I've got no idea why that's the case, but yeah, the good folks at Google decided that should be the case, that you can't interact with a live stream on a mobile phone. So here we are. And so starting off with this lovely Luxian purple, and I want to use this on... I want to use this on the... they've got it as like a lower half. I want to use it on... in between all of these little bits at the bottom. So let's put that in and stain this glass. You're on your... Richie's on his phone, he can type. In that case, I got no idea what's going on with one of my viewers who's been contacting me. Oh, Ovik, to not come away from Warhammer, but on thoughts of Dune. Any interest in the new movie? Yes, enormous interest. So I haven't seen it. I want to see it. I think I'm gonna have to wait for a home release before I do get to watch it. But I read the first Dune book. It was a Christmas present a few years back. And I did something that if you managed to get time, IMAX was well worth it. Unfortunately, I don't really live near an IMAX. I'd love to see stuff in IMAX. I just don't live close to one. And my travel is not the least limited. So actually, I'm going to do all of these semicircle bits in a different color to each other. I think that's going to make it look really visually interesting. There we are. Basically, my camera decided to crash for a moment there. That's fun. So yeah, Dune, yes. So I got the book, and actually, I don't normally manage to read the books before I watch a film, and a lot of the time I choose not to. I'm already aware that the film just already sets up Dune Messiah so that you don't think that Paul's the goodie. Because I prefer the book Dune Messiah to the first Dune book. But yeah, I don't normally read the book before I see a movie because I spent most of my childhood. So really, it's Harry Potter. Blame Harry Potter, right? Really is about Doom Messiah. Yeah, I prefer Doom Messiah. I don't really know why, but I just found it a more enjoyable read. Children of Dune was fine. It was interesting enough. Body horror at a couple of points that wasn't even the most messed up part of the book, in my opinion. Still enjoyable. But yeah, I've not read books 4, 5, and 6 yet. Yeah, I'm wanting to get this really lovely, the second Great Dune trilogy book, because I've got the first Great Dune trilogy as this lovely hardback leather-bound tome, which I just think is beautiful, and I'd love to get the matching one. I think I prefer Dune Messiah because it doesn't, like, the first Dune is, and I know that Frank Herbert wrote the second one basically because he was sick of people misinterpreting the first one in exactly this way. But the first Dune book was very much the chosen one becomes emperor, right? And I kind of prefer how the second one, Dune Messiah, kind of turns out on its head a bit. That's just me, though. Yeah, 4's meant to be the great one, and then 5 and 6 things go a bit off the rails, and 6 actually ends on a cliffhanger, I'm aware, and ends in this very meta way with these two characters who are basically Frank Herbert and his wife talking about the characters. It's really interesting to me as a concept. But his son finished the story based on his notes across 2 more books, and but I'm basically given to understand that no one really counts the Dune sequels as true Dune. I've heard that Brian Herbert's Dune books aren't really worth tackling. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. But yeah, I blame Harry Potter for why I don't normally read the books before watching a movie. Because if films made book money, no one would make films. But also, and it's really so, I was about as old as Harry was in the first movie when that film came out in the UK. And then I was about as old as Harry was in the second movie when that film came out. And then I grew up with Harry Potter, the films, being approximately the same age as the title character. Now, I was also the only member of my family who didn't read the books. I read the first 3 and the first half of the 4th one, and never finished the 4th one, and just couldn't really be bothered with the rest of them. But every time I would go see the new Harry Potter movie, the movie would end, the credits would roll, would all leave the cinema, would all leave the screen, and everyone I would speak to wouldn't really talk about the movie. It was the simple line, the book was better. It was this and all the discussion about the film was how it wasn't the book. And I kind of / very much grew to resent that mentality. So I stopped reading the books before the films, just didn't do it. And it meant that I was able to enjoy these films without having to compare them to the books. And I kind of went too far the other way, though. If I've read a book and then they announce a movie, I don't watch the movie. I watched The Martian. So no, I didn't watch The Martian. I read the book of The Martian several years before they announced a movie. And I refused to watch the movie because I don't want to be comparing it to my memory of a book. And apparently the movie is amazing. And I'm basically going to let the movie fans be, and I'm leaving that movie alone. I ain't touching it. I'm not touching the Martian movie. I do not know why. Yeah, you can't separate the book and the movie. No, exactly. Which is why I leave The Martian well alone as a film, because I read the book and I am not. I know I can't look at the films anything other than not the book. So I've not read Project Hail Mary. What's interesting is I don't read anywhere near as much as I should. I'm currently between jobs, which is why I've been able to dedicate so much time to YouTube. And I've been able to read in that time because I have like whole days where I don't have much that needs doing, really. Let's use Keelia Green Shade if it's not. But it meant that I just don't. So yeah, I don't get a lot of time to read. On top of that, I've got other things going on in my life. So there are people to see, stuff to do, I've got a wedding. I've got a wedding to organize. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. But when I do get a chance to read, I read like an absolute demon. So I read Dune Messiah in a single day. I read Children of Dune in 2 days. I read the first Dune book in 1 day, and then read 2 more books. It was the Ramesh Ranganathan pseudo autobiography and the Dictator's Handbook that was recommended to me through the CGP Grey video, Rules for Rulers. I read the first Dune book and those 2 in a single day, because when I do read, I read like an absolute demon. Thank you. I average about 100 pages a minute, so I know that if I got the second Great Dune trilogy, if I woke up, started reading, and basically had a break to eat and go to the loo, I could probably read the second Great Dune trilogy over the course of a day. For the Song of Ice and Fire books, I read the first book in a day, second book in a day, third book was split into 2 parts in my version, so I read each part in 1 day, so 2 days for book 3, 2 days for book 4, and then 3 days for A Dance with Dragons. And one of those days was I didn't read because I got some very tragic family personal news on that day, so I finished it the following day. I do really like reading. I'm just not good at getting the time, and I also find that audiobooks, I just get annoyed at how slow they often are. I consumed a lot of audiobooks during lockdown, because I'd get like, you could find the kind of classics, the royalty-free ones on YouTube. That's where I read stuff like Jekyll and Hyde, The Island of Dr. Moreau, Dorian Gray, Treasure Island, The Jungle Book and its other parts. Separately, I'd consumed the Lord of the Rings audiobook, which was about 50 hours. The Silmarillion audiobooks, more like 12. But I frequently have to increase the speed of things so that I'm not spending so much time listening to someone talk really slowly. And it isn't just the those audiobooks. So Warhammer audiobooks, right? My honest to God favorite piece of Warhammer fiction of all time is The Infinite and the Divine. It's a brilliant Necron story. I did a video on this channel summarizing it in 4 sentences because I thought it'd be fun. It was fun. So I've used Sigval Burgundy. Let's use Carabao Crimson on the top bit of this window. So yeah, one books I recommend. Always I recommend The Infinite and the Divine. The Infinite and the Divine, it's a comedy. But what I'd say is do not read the audiobook for it, because it is a very funny book, but the audio is still told in the grimdark style. And when you're telling a book in that style, you lose the comedy of it. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend an audiobook of a comedy. The other one I recommend is the Caiaphas Cain books. It does require a bit of knowledge about the universe, but again, deeply funny, because he is a commissar who, in law, don't typically care about the people they command. Like, their job is to shoot them if they don't fall in line. It's the old line of you can face the enemy, who will probably kill you, or not face the enemy, at which point I will definitely kill you. Right? That's the commissar line. But oh god, Hitchhiker's Guide, yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide, I've not read the book, but I watched the TV series they did, which used the same cast as the radio, like the same cast and the same script as the radio show, which was done and written at the same time as the book. So I view my consumption of Hitchhiker's Guide to be very accurate. But yeah, that's just me saying that. So yeah, that's Hitchhiker's Guide. But yeah, with Warhammer audiobooks, those jokes were lost. Yeah, Caiaphas Cain, that's where I was at. Caiaphas Cain is this character, this commissar, who deeply cares about the men under his command. But also, the way it's told, you're not entirely sure whether or not Caiaphas Cain is a strategic genius on the battlefield who has unconventional strategies, but damn it, they work. You're not sure if it's that, or if he's actually just an absolute coward. And to be honest, with the 40k setting, being an absolute coward is the most sensible thing you can be. So, yeah, Caiaphas Cain is a really compelling character in that sense because he does stuff that we would do. He runs, but because everything in the Warhammer fiction is propaganda of some kind, mostly Imperial propaganda, it's told as though he is a strategic genius because his cowardice always has him coming out on top. It's like he'll flee some orcs and accidentally drive those orcs into the side of a cliff. And everyone goes, oh my god, that was amazing driving. But as an audience member, you kind of think, well, hang on, was that amazing driving or was he just running away and got very lucky? But he keeps getting lucky and becomes a hero of the Imperium. That's the glory of Caiaphas Cain. So this is our stained glass window so far, and I feel like I need another 4 colours to finish this off. I'll have legitimately spent a straight hour of painting on just the stained glass window, right? I won't have touched the main bit of the model this stream. Only been working with, just that aspect of it. So I've used the Silver Vagabond's Burgundy, I've used some Carabao Crimson, used some Blood Angels Red, used Orc Flesh, used Hexwraith Flame. How is Celia Greenshade doing? I'm hoping this hasn't dried up. Celia Greenshade is good to go. I'm going to use Celia Greenshade on like these outside bits. Just fill that in with something a little bit darker. So Caiaphas Cain, it's a series of books. I don't remember the name of the first one, but you can buy them in omnibuses. So you get like books 1 through 3 as an omnibus. But yeah, Caiaphas Cain's a bit of a fan favorite for that because he also does genuinely care about the people under his command. He doesn't want them to throw their lives away. And yeah, he's the kind of hero of the Imperium because of his bravery and tactical genius that could be idiocy and cowardice. I've heard it said that if you're like brand new to the Warhammer setting, the Eisenhorn books are a good place to start. But I don't really know anything about Inquisitor Eisenhorn, so I don't feel like I can, in good conscience, recommend it. Other than it's supposed to be amazing. Okay, another one. Oh, I should really use the Celia green shade here as well in the middle. Yeah, this is where we're at so far. And another 1, 2, yeah, another 3-ish colours. We should be fine. I'm actually going to get the Blood Angels red back because a couple of other bits I think should be Blood Angels red to match the rest of the model, which is these tiny bits up here. There we are. 1, 2, 3 more colours. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to water down another colour. And the colour I'm going to water down is going to be Wild Rider Red. To do that, let's get our big brush back. Get some lovely Wild Rider Red onto my brush, like that. Put it onto the Tupperware lid. Clean off that brush. Get some water. A lot of water. Mix that around till you've got that thin consistency again that you get in your washes and shades and stuff. So get that, and that is going to be put into here. Wild Rider is actually a lot lighter than a lot of the other reds I've used, which sets it up well to go into the circles of the stained glass window here. There we are, and then one more colour should finish off the stained glass window. But before I do that, a little bit where I've gone into a couple of areas I didn't want to, so I'm getting my tissue to a really fine point and literally soaking up the watery paint. Then ended up in the place I didn't want it to be. That's another little bit where I've not quite got paint where I need it to go, so down there. And yeah, one more colour and be good to go. Do you use Lamy in medium? I keep seeing YouTubers use it, but I don't see how it's better than just water. So I don't use Lamy in medium. It's another thing I'd have to get from the official store. In terms of why it's better than just using water, I guess the short answer is I don't really know. The slightly longer answer is that I think it's because the paints aren't just water-based. So they have a bit more to them than that. And so by using a medium that matches what the company, what the paints are 100%, you get a thinner paint without changing its consistency. Water, though, does change the consistency by quite a bit. So you get, I take a contrast paint or a shade paint or a layer paint or a base paint. So I've just put in the layer paint moot green down here. And in doing so, and by watering it down, it changed its consistency, so it's no longer the same type of paint. You couldn't use this watered down mixture as a layer, not really. I see it used a lot on the Warhammer Plus stuff, the Citadel Painting Masterclass, but again, I don't really use it myself because, when I can get more paints, if I'm in a position where I'm buying Lamy in medium, then I'll get myself like a nice orange or something. So rather unintentionally, I've gone for a very red, purple, and green color scheme. But you start out with a color you think looks nice, and then you think, oh, what will match this? What will go? Before you know it, you've accidentally invented a color scheme. There's no existing order of the Adeptus Sororitas that has this color scheme. But in a sense, if I were to extend this out and go for a full Sisters army, this would be the color scheme they use, which is good fun. It's a kind of a nice way of going about it. what I'll do, because this is very liquidy paint, I'm not going to rotate it to show you what it looks like, but I will pick up the camera and put it over so you can then see what it looks like. And I'll get a picture of it and put it up as a community post as well. It's quite fun painting with these very liquidy paints. It's an interesting challenge to try and overcome. Just gone back in with the red where it's kind of been started to pull away from where I want it to be, basically. Oh, there we are. Been streaming for just over an hour. And in that time, we have one stained glass window. And got to keep it like this for like 30 seconds because otherwise my I can't tell, but I think it's being shown there. And you'll get to see, yeah, my stained glass window. And for anyone painting along at home or who's been painting along, remember, perfect is the enemy of done. Like, there are areas that I think that the next time I paint something like this, I know what I can do differently. But I am also very happy with how this looks. It's something new that I've not done before. It's a new challenge. And so, yeah, very happy with the stained glass window. And yeah, join me next time for painting up more of the vehicle this is attached to. Okay, I thought it was a 30-second lag, but I feel like the lag's gotten worse over the course of the stream. So I'm just going to hope that was in focus. I'm going to call it there and say thank you very much to everyone who's joined. And if you're still watching, thank you very much still. If you're watching this after the event, then... Okay, yeah, the stream's way behind where I am. Yeah, if you're watching this after the event, thank you for sticking around. And until next time, I will see you soon. And I hope that you are having a really good day.